But when you become AI native, I think that's where it becomes very political.
Actually, his interview, he said 100% of code will be written by AI. But the way it was read was that 100% of software engineers will be out of a job.
There is a lot of friction to getting AI adopted.
And so the challenge is, for entrepreneurs who used to following playbooks, today those playbooks are changing every week.
But one of the things that has happened with the individual productivity is not translated into team productivity.
Right. So the role is there, but the tasks are just completely different. It's a diffusion of the technology into enterprise. It's not super fast. So, folks, you're watching the Vibe podcast with Rajan and me. We're back again, just having a random conversation on AI and seeing what the state of AI is today. So, Rajan,
Since when do we back up, right? How many years or decades, right? So in dog years, 7 years is like what is that? Internet year, dog year. I think now we have like a new AI year, right? Where every 6 months it
yeah,
seems like a decade.
yeah. I think internet maybe years. Now with AI, it seems like weeks, or at most months. Feel like many years. Um, I think between November and now, it's been such a massive shift.
Yeah, yeah. Especially the November Opus 4.5 release, which is what has and then which led to the December campaign that Anthropic did in giving one gift to everyone, and that's what I think got a lot of people hooked onto Cloud Code. Till
Yeah,
then, it was like, oh yeah, this seems like a crazy thing,
yeah,
interesting thing,
yeah.
etc. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember playing with Claude or GPT before December, before January, kind of a thing,
Hmm.
and trying to like build stuff. But there's a lot of work had to be done to, say do it this way or do it that way, or how do you deploy it? Everywhere. Like there were so many gaps in figuring stuff out for the AI to figure stuff out. So I would have to like step in, and I'm too lazy to do that. But I think after I started I took a long break in December. But after I started using it in Jan to kind of go into like a build mode, it's just like
Build,
figuring
build,
stuff
build since
out.
then.
It's just building stuff. It's deploying it. End to end, the process of building, whether it's just a informative website or a interactive thing or an Android app. All of these things have been like pretty good. So it basically figures stuff out, reads the documentation, figures out how to build it, how to deploy it, and test it after it's deployed, make sure that it's live. So I'm building stuff in languages that I've never programmed in, deploying on services that I have don't even know anything about, and once in a while I have to do a few things because there's no API for it, or have
Two
to.
things for me, right? So one is that maybe it looks like you were also a skeptic and got converted, right? During somewhere around this phase, but like maybe we're not. A lot of people I saw DHH, and the biggest skeptic that got converted was Linux Torvalds, right? He said like what this AI coding tool, and like there were a couple of others like
Yeah,
Ken Beck and all were saying, oh my god, like I'm coming back like from retirement after 40 years and I'm doing programming and things like that. But then Linus Torvalds had written off, and then after he experienced in
yeah,
Jan with all the changes from Gemini 3.1,
yeah,
4.5, and things like that, then he also became a convert. So a lot
absolutely.
of people actually moved over. That really means like an inflection point. And then the way at least try to make sense of this is I've been talking about this, the scaling law. I wrote a blog post on it, heard from Satya Nadella first. The actual paper says something else. The Chinchilla paper says something else, which is the correlation between data and compute and how it changes the equation of intelligence. My own thumb rule has been that every 6 months the cost goes by 1/10 and intelligence performance goes by 30%. And Satya Nadella calls this as the Moore's law. So I always look for this 6 years, 6 months jump. Right, in every 6 months,
Right.
there is a architectural shift that is happening, or there is a model shift that is happening,
Yep.
and it is creating an unlock in intelligence, which makes you go from, oh my god, I thought this is not possible at all, to now, oh my God, what did just happen, right?
Yeah, totally, totally.
So I think November, December was that time frame where an inflection point had happened. Even though
Yeah,
Cloud Code got released in July when we were talking about it, Vibe,
yeah,
right? In March it had come, and multiple of us were playing with it. But November was like an inflection point. And if I hear it right, the next model, what is it called, mythos, right? From
yeah.
Anthropic, that is also be touted to be a model which is going to come with a very very big jump. Now it is not literally 6 months since November, but maybe by the time we will hit VibeCon, it'll be, I think, we will see another massive unlock.
Possible, possible. I think definitely, there were people who could see the signs of what was working and what was not working. To me, I think I look at the METR uh, report uh, on tasks in the economy. I mean, they're focusing on coding tasks, right? And they're looking at the length of these tasks, and they're trying to decompose and not decompose, but they're trying to get AI to run these tasks and see how long of a task AI can run without errors. And that length to me is more of a determinant of how useful it is for us
Hmm.
as individuals or as companies. And that length has been doubling every 3 to 4 months. It was doubling every 4.5 months. Now it seems to be like the last couple of doublings have been like 3.5 months or so. So now their benchmark is almost saturated. So they have to figure
They have
out
to
a new
figure out new
benchmark.
benchmarks.
Um, to me, the step has been like when it's able to run stuff that would have taken a human anywhere from 4 hours to 6 hours to 12 hours. So it's able to run something for 12 hours with a 50% accuracy. And it's able to run something for 3 to 4 hours with a 80% accuracy. That suddenly means that tasks that are that long uh, can just be done. And the real question I think that both the folks in the paper are asking, and from a general perspective, is like most of the longer tasks can be decomposed into things that will be 15 minutes or half an hour or a couple of hours or something like that, right? You're rarely going to have a task that's going to actually take a day or 24 hours and so on. So I think that shift is what we're all feeling, in that the agents, the AI can now complete tasks which are up to a couple of hours with very high probability of success. And the harness is able to decompose any large task into these tasks which would have taken humans 15 minutes or half 1 hour or a
Right,
few
right.
hours. So I think that combination of these two things is what flipped the thing for me in between November to now.
So now, yeah. I'd also say, there is one more dimension that I'm finding very fascinating. One is, if you look at it from an individual productivity, I think we've gone through some insane jumps in the last 3 months, six
Right.
months, last 12 months, definitely. Like anybody who uses Cloud Code or Chat GPT are able to do things really, really fast. But one of the things that has happened with the individual productivity is not translated into team productivity.
Right.
You and I are working independently on code, and we all feel like, oh my God, what is happening? But then the moment you and I have to actually do that compound engineering plug in with each other, or my code, then overlapping with your code, I mean using
Right.
Git or Git tree or whatever is needed. I think that amalgamation has not happened yet, at code level, at let's say doc creation level, at marketing coordination
Right.
level. The next I would say that unlock that I'm looking forward to, and I don't think it is more a model work. Maybe it is product work with intelligence embedded in it, and how that comes together to make it multiplicative.
Right.
Right? You are 10x productive, I am 10x productive, but when we add up, I don't know if you even get 20x productive, right? And that, how you reconfigure your workflows, what a new set of tools you will use. I
Mm.
think that is the next unlock that I'm looking for. Maybe that is not something that is governed by scaling law, maybe it is,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But that is something that is interesting. And then the third part is when all of this becomes fully autonomous, right? So one of the other conversation that I'm having is, a lot of people like to come and say, hey, I'm going AI native, AI native services or AI native product company. But the three layers, and we've been talking about this in a lot of the recent blog posts, is three layers is, first is your AI augmented, where you're saying that I am doing this task. Now I bring in a AI tool, and then I'm able to do 10x better, and you're able to write better emails, faster code, etc. That is really like augmenting what you were already doing. But AI first is where we solve this team problem, where my AI augmentation, your AI augmentation, but working inside an organizational construct require a complete reimagination of that workflow, so that you're really bringing like an AI first. But when you become AI native, I think that's where it becomes very political. When you become AI native, you're first asking this question, okay, I'm going to start from zero. And I'm going to ask this question, for this objective to be achieved for this organization, how many humans do I need? How many agents do I need? And that is where, like, this whole aspect of future of work is this humans plus agents has to be fully baked in. And then you have to come up with this thought process saying 80 agents or 8 agents and 2 humans. That means that you're redefining the role of a CHO, a CHRO, CEO, CTO, and then that is a conversation that I think most people are not willing to have. And that is where I think the economy will be in, like, completely different, I would say, tailspin, right? So most people like to call we are building AI native, but if it
Right.
doesn't start with the conversation of how do I reconfigure my organization, so AI native discussion is the org
Right.
design discussion.
I think you're absolutely right that the next level may not require much better AI models, but a re-engineering of the harness and how it's working. I think Steve Yeg, I don't know how to pronounce his last
Yagi,
name,
Stevie Yagi.
Steve Yegi, um, he had these levels of AI adoption, and so I'm in the middle tier where I'm using AI, and I have like two or three uh,
Agents.
parallel things running in Cloud Code, and each of them is like running multiple agents and things like that. But I'm not yet running at the next level that you're describing, where a lot of organizational level of work is happening, and the agents are collaborating with each other. I'm only supervising them, right? I'm not at that level yet. But and he's got the harness, gas down, is what he calls it, to do that, right? And to me, I'm looking at it, and it's not yet like I'm not yet in tune with that, right? I'm not vibing with that yet.
It's complex. Gastown is complex.
But the flip side of that is that while gas down seems complex, your organization is already complex. We just have uh, affordances in the form of asking humans stuff.
See, few
We are
folks
used
that
to
I
that.
have known, and I'm sure, like, you've seen the work that Akash is doing. So, like, you eventually become complex, but you start with like
Yeah.
simple. So that's why, like, he's really using Ralph Wiggum loop to the hilt. It's like, okay, I'm going to have one Claude, I'm going to have one Codex. This is going to code, this is going to review, and then let them run 24/7. Right.
Right.
So he's not come to the complex pattern of how do I do the orchestration.
Correct.
And, like, at your current state, maybe you are more productive and getting more stuff done
Yeah.
than to getting that level of complexity. I think CV Agi may be someone who's already dealt with, like, 500
Exactly.
agents. Right?
Exactly.
When we are working with like single digit agents, maybe like you need to be amoeba first, then maybe protozoa, right?
Maybe, right? But I think the adoption, the diffusion of these ideas and how it works is very fast,
Correct.
because this is not a
It's one of the
it's
fastest
not a
growing
thought
projects.
process that needs to diffuse.
Yeah.
It's a bit of the mindset, but it's also it's a product that's being diffused.
Correct.
So when I'm using it, it's the product that I'm using, and I can adopt that mindset. I don't need to completely understand the
Right.
architecture of it to be able to use it.
Yeah.
So to me, in some way, the architectural change coming from chat as an interface to say a Claude code as an interface, which is running multiple sub agents and things like that, to something like gas down, is a similar shift that has to happen on the organizational side, where individuals are using a computer to become more productive individually, right?
Then
Then
collaborate.
individuals are using AI to become more productive individually, and then maybe they're using agents and sub agents individually. But then at the organizational level, what is the equivalent of a gas town? They're not just using sub-agents, but the organizational sub-agents are talking to each other
Correct.
and working with each other. I think that is, to me, the parallel of what Steve
Yes.
has done with Gastown, because the agents, when they need input to do something, are they asking you, or are they asking me, or are they asking any of us? And any of us can respond. So to me, the organizational pattern of me running my agent, you running your agent, then us figuring out how to collaborate,
Collaborate.
versus say there is a farm of agents running
Collaborate.
and we are collaborating with that farm of agents. To me, that seems like a more amenable, more like mappable kind of a construct, right? Otherwise, if I am running my agents, you are running your agents, and we are trying to figure out how to collaborate, it still has a the rate of collaboration can only be how you and me collaborate.
Yeah, I think we're in very early stages of all these different type of architectures,
Yeah.
different type of harness, and the harness is evolving, and we will get to a place where I think the AI first redefinition of workflow will happen.
Yeah.
But then, like as we move one step further, then in terms of redesign, a fog will happen.
Yeah, and that's where the politics comes in, because if I'm looking at it as a group of agents running, and the group of agents then work with us, then like which part of it is influenced by Rajan, which part of it is influenced by Prasanna, how are we getting our our points of view across into this, who is getting what into this. I think that becomes very interesting to think about. So what have you been up to for the last few weeks?
3 4 weeks, a lot of travel, gone to different cities,
Okay,
and just trying to find out what is the vibe with respect to AI in different cities.
so how has it been?
How has it been? I went to Chennai for AI Boomi. I made a prediction last year that SaaS Boomi will be called AI Boomi. It is called AI Boomi this year. My current prediction is that AI Boomi will come to Bangalore this year, right?
Okay.
So yeah, it was good. Like generally SaaS Boomi is like a great place to go and meet founders and soak the founder energy. But for me, this time felt a little different. Like it did not feel like chest thumping, sharing lessons,
Okay.
and like saying that oh, we've just killed it and things like that. I think it is because March was just after April, where $2 trillion of market got wiped out, right?
Right.
And
The
like
SaaS apocalypse.
SaaS apocalypse, you see public market, then like it translates to private market, and practically every investor there. And this is what one founder in the corridor was scribbling about, saying that is coming and telling us that SaaS is dead. Like we know, but tell me what after that, right?
Right.
But that I could see that sense of I don't know what is going on, like like a deer in front of a
Oh
headlight.
yeah.
So so that was a vibe. Like one of the good thing about SaaS Boomi is that it brings founders together. There's camaraderie, and then there is a little bit of like you're going through this issue, I'm also going through this issue, and then
Right.
it can in small private groups it could lead to like catharsis, like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
conversation. So that was there. It could have been more, right? But my own talk was like I shared my framework on saying, hey, look at dam breaks, look at digital cocaine we talk about, then find choke points. So that was resonant. But then one other thing that I think I left the the audience with, there was a statement I said SaaS is the new COBOL. Not that it is dead. You can still make a lot of money with COBOL.
Absolutely.
It's just that it is
IBM
not.
still does.
IBM still does, 3 trillion transactions still happens. It's just that you don't no Gen Z will want to work on it, no millennial will want to work on it. It went from future to furniture, right? Expensive furniture,
Right.
and that became the corridor conversation. But everybody was terrified by Claude. What do you think?
So I think you're right. Last year also I was saying that SaaS is dead, and we've been saying SaaS is dead for 3 years now. And it didn't make any sense to me that last year was continuing to be SaaS booming. And of course, if you're doing AI, the center of gravity, at least in India, is in Bangalore. Probably HSR is where AI
Most
booming
of my
needs to
AI
be
startups are there.
next time, right? Because it doesn't make sense to do it anywhere else. And I think there is a uh, way to build conviction and the old way to build conviction in things, whether I'm starting up or figuring out what product to build or what problem to solve and things like that, is okay. I'm going to talk to so many people, and I'm going to build my conviction by building my thesis. And as I build my conviction, then I understand what's going on, and therefore I come back and say, okay, now I'm clear. This is the next gear. Let me shift my gear. Right now, what's happening is, I go out, I start talking to people. By the time I have one cycle of conversations and I come back, instead of me being in a car, right now I'm sitting in a completely different vehicle. It's not my car anymore, so I don't know, am I in like which gear right now? Is there even a gear left? Right. So we were all building on top of stable technology, so we could build that conviction of the outside world with respect to this technology. And of course the technology kept changing, right? I mean, internet, web 2, cloud, whatever, technology shifted, but those shifts were not so fast. And the shifts were, at least the way I recall it, the shifts were fairly like spread out over a period of time. The diffusion was happening. You could understand what was going on. You could figure out what was coming next. And of course, you're not seeing all the patterns, but didn't feel like everything is just turning upside down. Here, between the model capabilities and the now the harness and how these things are interacting, it just feels like what I could build yesterday, which gear I was in, which vehicle I was in. The vehicle itself is shifting, and then the orbit itself is shifting.
It's
So
I
how can
call
I
that
build conviction?
I call this is the Cloud Code and OpenClaw. I call them as transformer Autobots. It can reconfigure
Yeah,
itself to
yeah,
anything we want, and then you don't know how to make sense of that.
correct. So I think that's the fear or feeling that entrepreneurs are having, which is uh, causing them to kind of lose, where they are. Because if I cannot build conviction on anything that I'm doing, because I go out, build conviction, and then next week it looks like it's not there, or I'm building in a particular space, maybe SaaS, maybe security, maybe legal, whatever it is, and then Cloud Code just drops some plugins, and that entire industry loses $300 billion in market cap or whatever. uh, how do I, as an entrepreneur starting from scratch or very early in my journey, figure out what's real?
Funny thing, Prasanna, is that I've talked about Wally Map for many years.
Right.
I got there a few days ago, and we talk about that as a framework in SaaS, and in other B2B conversations. I think the Wadley Map conversation needs to happen the most now,
Yeah.
and most of the founders they're not able to see that. And I mean, basically it's a framework, right?
Yeah.
Framework of how to think about moving parts, and the moving parts, at least all the examples of Wadley Map were all like how you said, many years ago, many years spread apart.
Yeah.
But this is the first time where they are changing every day, right? So
Right.
you go back, and then you redraw your Wadley map, saying whatever I had assumed that this is going to be like a Genesis component, and most people thought that models are Genesis,
Yeah.
right? But today, when you see one frontier model release every 18 day,
Yeah.
that means that it went from your Genesis to commodity literally in 2 years,
Right.
right? Then then your question is like, okay, you don't know what the user wants because the user needs change based on what he experiences.
Correct.
So that was like a strong anchor, and that fundamentally changed. Then the component going from Genesis to commodities is going at a breakneck speed that
Yeah.
has not been historically witnessed. So that Wadley map is like a daily jumping video every day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And how do you actually make sense of that, of saying, hey, where do I stand and where do I move, and where am I actually trying to go? And that is the hard part, right? That's where you go ahead and build an app, and then suddenly Cloud Code has released this, or OpenAI has released that, and then you suddenly are out of options to play in the game, right? So it feels like it doesn't even matter if I build something anyway. Cloud Code will come and do this. And I've seen a few founders. I've had this conversation with a few founders. They're like, what is the point of doing anything, because everything will be
Correct.
anyway done by these platform
Correct.
guys. I don't know. I'm not too excited about that mindset. What do you think about,
So I
is that
was
the right way to
reading,
say anything?
I was reading a guy in a frontier lab, and his point of view is like, what am I even doing when AGI is going to come next year? Maybe I should just sit back and chill. And I can totally see, point of view in that, because if you think of energy as a finite resource, if you think of attention as a finite resource, then maybe I should just relax and rest and you know get my life in order.
Have UBI,
Uh,
then just
Maybe, right,
relax.
or wait a bit for this noise to kind of settle down and then get into it, because maybe I didn't get into Cloud Code in March of last year or whatever, right? But I think I've caught up pretty well relative to
The rest of
many
the folks.
folks. So, is there really an advantage to getting in super early on a technology, or is it okay to like focus on the users' needs, customers' needs? Because the challenge that as many people are speaking about is the diffusion of the technology into enterprise is not super fast. It's fast in some places, it's very slow in other places, and it's not clear to me that enterprise buying processes have completely changed now. I hear about Darius or Sam Altman talking about how enterprises are trying to speed up their procurement to buy Claude code or things like that. But I'm not sure that's necessarily true for a startup which is building some other product. Uh, and will the business users push that through the procurement process faster? How much faster?
Yeah,
All of
yeah.
those kind of things, right?
I think one thing that has not changed is the B2B buying process. Most people think it has. It is just that things have changed in terms of what they like to focus on. There's this thing that I keep saying that 2 years ago it was all about, let me figure out what is our enterprise AI strategy. That was the board conversation. Then after that it became saying, hey, what is our agentic strategy? And then now it has become, what is my open class strategy, or what has become my Nemo class strategy. They keep
Yeah,
revolving
yeah, yeah,
strategy
yeah.
decks, right? But I think in terms of adoption and purchases, there is a lot of friction to getting AI adopted. But I want to go back to that mindset thing, right? I just got reminded of an example. So I saw 2 3 founders building some coding agents about 12 months ago. And at that particular point in time, it felt like they can compete with Claude and they can compete with Codex. But then they saw that each of them are taking like $1 billion. Then they're like, okay, given up, right? I don't want to sort of
Yeah,
come
yeah.
and compete in this particular space. At the same time, I saw another startup founder. What they were doing is they were building testing agents. And testing agents, you and I have experienced that at least in some of these cases, it is not taken off. But then, one enterprise customer came to them and then said, look, you are building testing agent. I don't want testing agent. I want a coding agent, but I want coding agent specifically for insurance. And if you actually build it, I'll give you $3 million. So you see that on one hand,
Right.
people were building like generic coding agent, and it felt like wrong timing.
Yeah.
But now these guys are coming and saying, hey, for my vertical, if you build coding agent, then I will actually pay you money. And then they're asking them to build an open source stack and so on and so forth. So I to the point of if a coding agent like Claude is built, right, and then and they have gotten to $1 billion, everything is over. This is not the case, right? So
Yeah,
there is
absolutely.
timing, there is which use case and how
Yeah,
it led to a path dependence for you. All of that adds up. So
yeah, yeah.
I think entrepreneurship has always been the case and should continue to be the case, is that they should be optimistic, right, in the sense saying that, look, just because there is a cloud code doesn't mean that I cannot operate in a space like that. You should find what is your angle, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that all of them will succeed as well. And that's how a few other coding agent startups failed. And these guys at least have a shot to sort of move forward. At least for me, my take is entrepreneur, AI, no AI, AGI, no AGI, super intelligence. You need to believe that the future is bright, right?
Yeah, see, I think fundamentally, a lot of people are followers. Even though they become entrepreneurs,
They want
they
playbooks.
are followers.
My most hated word.
Yeah, they want playbooks, right? And so the challenge is, for entrepreneurs who used to following playbooks, today those playbooks are changing every week, every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks. And even the folks who used to publish playbooks, now when they publish playbooks, they are doing so very tentatively. Right? They're just putting out very rough drafts and stuff like that. So it doesn't look like a playbook. Right? And so that is one big issue I see, where entrepreneurs look for, hey, what has worked for others, let me try to do that.
And before they will find an example, they won't make a choice.
Exactly
This
right.
is where Shekhar Kirani, when he came to our Vibe conference, said something very beautiful. He said that there are multiple waves of a technology. And if you really look at even SaaS, the first wave is not where the Indian founders really won.
Yeah.
Right? He said that at our conference, right? He said, but by the time the second wave comes, the playbooks have been figured. Once you have the playbook, then we'll bat it out of the park, right?
Yeah.
So that we are going through the first wave right now,
Yeah.
and
And
founders that will do well are the first principles thinkers,
I don't know.
or those people who will say like use body map and then say, okay, how do I actually update my mental map every day, and then say how
So
is it
this, I don't know,
okay.
because I think there is a lot of timing, there's a lot of luck, and
That
there's a
for
lot
sure
of
in entrepreneurship, right?
an entrepreneurship, right? And more than that, I think there has to be an understanding that as an entrepreneur, I'm building the future. And that confidence, I think, is what is a big determinant, more than anything, any of these first principles thinking or
Which
stuff.
means that those who don't know anything, then they will
It doesn't matter, right?
they will be more confident because they're like,
Maybe,
yeah.
right? But do they have the mindset that they are actually building the future and not discovering the future? And to me, this is one of the key things between both Goldrat's books in Gold and uh, Simon Wadley and Professor Saras's frameworks. And if you look at Carlota Perez on the diffusion of technology cycles, all of them, the way they look at humans doing things is that humans are building the future. So that is the difference to me between somebody who's a follower and somebody who's a actual builder. And that, even when you look at it globally, there is a massive difference in how builders are put on a pedestal in the US as folks who have a manifest destiny of having a future that is going to be different because they built it, right? Versus the old economy countries, Europe and anywhere else, where it's more of like, it will happen, right? And we're part of the thing that is happening, but it's going to happen, right? And then of course we come to the East, and where depending on how your fate is, and depending on how your past lives are, depending on how your future life are, you're just in the flow, right? So I don't know how this plays out, but at least at this point in time, it feels like a lot of us have been taught to just give answers, follow playbooks, get a guide for writing the exam, which will have all the questions already, and all you need to do is mug up the answers. So that to me is like the big determinant of who's going to actually make it. Can we stop waiting for someone else, and can we say, no, I am going to build a future. I'm going to build a thing that changes the future.
But
I don't know if this is going to work or not.
the SaaS thing was literally not that, right? The SaaS thing was playbook, and that's
Yeah.
why we see a lot of people.
Yeah.
So for me, the word
And that's where we
playbook,
started, right? To me,
yeah,
that's the biggest learning, is that when we started off in SaaS, we said, hey, the playbooks are there, can we repeat the playbooks? And to some degree that worked, but to a large degree it actually didn't.
actually did not. Like I always say that one guy's playbook is like a marketing. For you, it
Yeah.
looks like playbook, but the guy who put it out, for him, it is marketing, right? So
Yeah.
most people don't realize that. So
So
for
to
me,
the ones, which companies went IPO, right? Freshworks went IPO, got to 10 billion, but is now at like 3 billion or something. So to me, that's two. So tough space to be in, right? But the folks who recently IPO'd have no peers. They didn't follow a playbook. They couldn't follow a playbook. So you look at Capillary, you look at Amagi. There is no peer.
they're all, see, I mean, I know you push back on first one. So I was having this conversation with Rajesh, right? Rajesh sits on the board, right? I said, Bhaskar is like a first principles thinker. Anish is a first principles thinker, right? In the sense that, look, I don't know, I will only do what works, right? He was talking about outcome based when, it
So
was
the difference I'm making
unsexy.
is, I've seen a lot of first principles folks, but if they don't have that belief that, hey, I am going to do something, and I don't care that it's different, I care that it works. To me, that is the difference. Otherwise, there are a lot of people who do backseat driving, first principles thinking, but they're not actually
I think
on the
for yeah,
wheel.
I think the word is over abused. The first principles thinking word is also over abused. But people who can actually say figure it out, have core belief that it will work. I mean, I will make the future happen,
Yes,
and then actually say that look, I will do whatever it takes.
correct.
I'm just not going to ask someone, hey, how did you do
Yeah,
this? How did you do this? Like,
yeah,
and I remember like speaking to someone long ago in the SaaS industry, and they said, what we are really good at is that you give us brilliant tutorials. We know how to crack
yeah,
it. You give me open-ended book problems, I can't solve it,
yeah,
right? And that becomes the big challenge. And I think for current at least wave, you would need people more like the Baskars who will say, or like more like Anish will say, what, look, whatever it takes, I'll go ahead and do it.
correct.
And for me, that aspect of that, I am optimistic, I will go ahead and do it, is the thing that I find very like exciting. A lot of people saying, oh, there is AGI going to come, what is the point of doing it? This is what annoys me the most, along with the
Yeah.
word playbook. What annoys you?
If I look at what's annoying me, I think personally, it's been a struggle, right, for me to figure out what to build, how to build, and things like that. So on the one hand, I'm hearing somebody rocket to $100 million in ARR, which is now annualized revenue run rate or something like
Could
that.
be financial engineering, maybe not. Yeah.
Maybe not, right? Uh, and the other hand, I hear of somebody just starting up in the Bay Area, whatever, and they get multiple $1 million contracts before even their product is ready, and things like that. Right? And on the other hand, I see products that are actually working, but is there a customer need that matches? Will they buy fast enough? So when I see all these things, I am very confused, right? Whether I'm looking at the basics and trying to understand it, or I'm trying to play and see what the game is and figure it out. All of these are like much stickier, much it's like wading through quicksand kind of feeling is what I have. Otherwise, I am one of those people who did much better on open book tests than closed book exams.
So, like, see, for me, my answer to this has been straightforward, right? But I think you're talking about personal level. We'll come back to the personal annoyance or other annoyance. I heard this from you. It's like, the only way to sort of make sense is stir.
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
Right? Motion, you don't ask this over versus motion
Yeah,
versus progress question
no,
too early,
correct.
right? And that's the scientific playbook
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Like penicillin was discovered because he was stirring and stirring, and an accident happened. And unless you keep stirring, beautiful accidents
No,
don't happen,
absolutely,
right? And
absolutely.
so you just have to develop your skills to
Yeah, yeah. So to
perceive.
me, then that's the annoying part, right? I think both the LLMs, AI, AGI, whatever it is, because I'm seeing some folks saying, "Hey, AGI is here," right? As of this year, 2026. So um, when I see people ask for, but it's not doing X yet, or it's not doing Y yet, or oh, you need like this kind of a very deep work to do X with AI or Y with AI. I'm like, it's very annoying because this meme is going around saying, oh, last year you guys were asking for this, and now that is done that, now the goalpost is moved, right? So the one that I saw was for video generation or image generation, where 2 years ago it was like, oh, how many fingers are there, right? And now there's a Rubik's cube and there's a mirror, and the problem is that it's not showing the exact faces. The hidden face of the Rubik's cube is in the mirror is not being shown correctly. That's the expectation. So that's insane. Like that's an insanely moved goalpost. Right? It's a really hard problem for anybody to do. But you're expecting that the vision, the image generation one will get that. So to me, I think um, people moving the goalposts without understanding what it can already do uh, is one annoyance. Another annoyance is people just trying free models. And of course, is there such a thing called prompt engineering? Probably not. But people just putting in like a really dumb prompt and trying to use AI the same way that they would use a chatbot or whatever, and then saying, hey, it doesn't work. uh, instead of understanding that it doesn't work for them. And people just completely discounting folks like a DHH or a Linus Torvalds or folks who are like at the top of their game, saying that hey, this thing works now. It wasn't working 3 months
There's
ago
a
or
phase
6 months
shift that
ago,
has happened.
but it works now, right? And people still saying, oh, it writes dumb code, it, all of that kind of stuff. They're like so far behind from mindset perspective. So that is really what is kind of annoying to me, and I see that in entrepreneurs as well. Even the folks that I work with, I see that, and they've not tried it. They've not tried it well. They have not tried to re-engineer themselves. They have not tried to change the way they their organizational process to try to use this, and they're saying it doesn't work. And I don't know how much more I can say, talk about, that this actually works, which is one of the reasons why from January onwards I have been personally building a lot to be able to make this argument much more specifically.
And also sort of speak from experience, right? Saying that,
Yeah,
look, what are you talking about? Like this,
yeah,
my
yeah,
experience
yeah,
is
yeah.
different, right?
I, I am close to a stage where I'm going to say, sit down, share your screen,
Uh,
let me do something for you that you think is not possible, and then shift people that way.
yeah. So I would say, like, for me, one mild annoyance is, I think, like, when I look at it retrospect, it's like the lemonade principle. But then I'll share this, like, this is an example I've been sharing for the last 3 weeks in one-on-one conversations, in, like, in keynote presentations. Like, start with saying that, look, Shantanu Narayanan is the best enterprise leader of our time. Has actually built $100 billion worth of, like, value, like 18 years of run. And, like, he's someone that, my previous CEO Brad used to go to and ask him how to do the desktop to SaaS migration, right? And he was considered to be legend. And the board decided he's not good enough for the AI transition. I mean, we all can read between the lines, right? If he cannot help an organization like Adobe make the transition, this is what the market and the board believes, then it is such a terrifying thought, right? Oh my god, like, what just happened? So first day when I heard it, like, it was terrifying. But 3 days later, I was like, when I again saw it, I'm like, man, this is the most relieving thing. Right? If Shantanu who could do this, he is like the rest of the world believes in, he cannot make the change, then, then, like, we're all mere mortals, right? So we should actually reset ourselves.
Right.
This is the best time for us to reset ourselves, saying that such a fundamental shift that is going on in the world. And by the way, the Walmart CEO also actually stepped down recently, to 3 days ago. It's same thing, right? Many old school, old industry CEOs and market, the board is coming and saying, hey, you're not able to make the shift. So the question is that, you should use this as an empowerment to say that, if they can't do it, then, is this how, if they feel like,
Yeah.
they need to go through a reset, then, we also can go through a reset. So for me, that part is what I've been sharing with people, saying that, look, you can also do it. So you just go back and then say, hey, reset yourself. Like, if you are a designer, you can call yourself a developer. If you are a developer, you can call yourself an engineer or a product manager. So you become like a builder, right? Now,
Yeah.
how do you actually leverage that and do things on top of it, right? Of course, like, there is going to be a cloud code that will come and generate code, but there, same thing happened with assembly code. Then, we moved into a higher level of abstraction,
Yes.
different set of things. And the best thing to do right now would be in investing in yourself,
Right.
and then saying, okay, how do I love your framing, right? I keep saying that, no, keep stirring,
Correct.
right? When you stir, then you will know. And then people are like, okay, then what will happen?
Yeah.
I'm like, once you keep stirring, then
Yeah. Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you will know, right? So Shantanu is stirring. Shantanu has to stir. You and I will have to stir. So everybody has the same starting point. That's the best thing that, AI could give. So I, like, I get mildly annoyed when people are not able to reset this.
Yeah, I think that's a hard psychological challenge, right? There is so much invested into a previous identity.
That is a problem, person. I mean, the same conversation I was having, that, look, if we actually think about ourselves as founder, like, we walk into a SaaS Boomi and we say, hey, I'm a SaaS founder,
Yeah.
right? Drop the word SaaS. You're a founder. And like how you said it, founder, figure shit out, right? Find out. Like
Yep.
that the generalist in a founder is going to go and say, okay, here is the problem, here is a customer, here is like, resources, and then let me actually put all of this together and see where can I make a trade. So if we can actually drop that identity that I'm a
Yes.
SaaS founder to saying I'm a founder,
Yep.
then suddenly it becomes empowering.
So I think even that is an identity that
Founder, yeah,
is tricky in these times, right?
sure.
I think like the founder archetype of hey, what am I doing? Right? Am I building a product business? Am I building what kind of a
Services
business? Am
business,
I
yeah,
building a services business? Right?
yeah.
Or am I like trying to kind of build something and then go to market? There are all these stereotypes and playbooks
Yeah, I
that
think
have been
it's
built,
core
right?
at the founder level. Also, I was thinking about it today morning. Like the difference between the internet and the AI shift. The internet shift. Let's say I lost a job. I was working at Yellow Pages, right? But at least I was like a Yellow Page printer, right? I mean, I lost that job, but I still kept the identity. But now the identity is also gone
Correct.
because the roles, the jobs, the titles have changed. So that it's really hard. And jobs in our society is just one of the primary driver of identity shaping, right?
Yes.
So when that gets hit, then I think that's where people are going through a lot of.
Correct. So I think that fear that the Sam Altman or Darius or all of these folks have created, um, and it's interesting how what they say is read as well, because I think Darius about a year ago or a couple of years ago he said by now, by 2020 early 2026, 100% of code will be written by
AI.
AI, right? And actually his interview he said 100% of code will be written by AI, but the way it was read was that 100% of software engineers will be out of a job. And so in the middle, like last couple of months, there have been folks writing saying I have not written, like Andre Karpathy has written that I have not written a line of code, and folks at that level are saying I'm not writing a line of code. So but it doesn't mean that they're out of a job, because they're now able to do much more. So the role is there, but the tasks are just completely different. But
The
everybody read
work is
it.
there. The
The
role
work
may
is
be
there,
there. The
right?
role may have been
Yeah.
changed, right? Yeah.
But everybody read it as software engineers are going to be out of a job. So how do we? Because that's what we identify ourselves with. I write code, not hey,
That's where people all jumped into
I'm
becoming
delivering
prompt
value.
engineer and now realize that that also is not like
Yeah,
a
that's correct.
strong enough role, right?
Correct.
And that's the whole Wadley map transition that we talk about. Whenever there is a phase shift,
Yeah.
there is like the role community shift, right?
Yep.
But that phase shift is happening so fast that the role community, it did not become like a normal engineer became prompt engineer. Now the prompt engineer has become irrelevant. Now people are asking, are you agentic engineer or
So
something
this
like that?
is the other side where I think we are in a bubble, right? SF is in a bubble. Parts of Bangalore, Kormangla, HSR, Indiranagar are in a bubble where we are all thinking this. But this is not diffused to the rest of the world. This is not diffused to enterprises. There, the roles are the same, the tasks are the same, the work is the same. It is not changed by much.
Right, but I mean, different type of enterprise, right? Even just this Adobe thing. I was working with an organization who were like, they were working with Adobe as a customer. They kept saying, "Hey, nothing. We only installed Cursor. Nothing has changed." And then, then the CEO changes happened.
Right.
Everything is changing now because the VP that has said, like, look, this is not how we do work, is now out,
Yeah.
right? So it's like I mean, I think enterprises change when it shakes on the top, right?
I mean,
Till
that's
then,
actually a really good observation.
right? Till then,
Yeah.
it doesn't change, right? But practically every other enterprise conversation that I've had, nobody's actually moved from pilot to production.
Yeah.
Like maybe then, like like there was like a very strong pushback against coding tools because at least engineers in Adobe take pride in writing the code,
Yeah.
right? They're supposed to be like topmost
Yeah. Yeah.
engineers and things like that. So there was like a lot of resistance
Yeah.
in bringing in like coding tools inside. And now I think they have signed up recently, maybe
And it
Cursor
will
and
still
Claw.
take them time, right? So my point is more that uh, we are in a bubble
It is the
now,
Neil Gibson, oh sorry, William Gibson thing that you're saying. Future is here, unevenly distributed.
unevenly distributed. So, but that fear has been created, right? So whether it's the SaaS apocalypse where the fear has been created, or the COBOL apocalypse, which Claude just a blog post. uh, I did not imagine the time when one blog post on a private company's website, one Twitter thread would wipe
Reduces
off like $100 billion of
23% of a stock price.
market cap of IBM,
IBM.
100-plus-year-old company. And it's in, I can't imagine. If I had written this scenario 5 years ago or 10 years ago, I would have said that that doesn't make
Doesn't
any
make any
sense,
sense.
right? So to me, like, each of these things are hitting, and obviously people are worried about, because they identify with those tasks. I write code, I do X, I do Y, and not the business value around it, because so much of our time and effort goes into those tasks. Now, if those tasks get taken away or get done much better, then how does the other stuff change to fill the time available? And so that's the real problem to me that founders have as well, because founders used to think I am doing strategy, or I'm doing research, or I'm doing X or Y, and now all of those things can be done way faster. Imagine that I was a founder who's used to take pride at listening to customer conversations and whatever my team is having, and like getting insight from that and stuff like that, right? Imagine if I was that founder who took pride in that task. Now that task will get done in, like, I don't know, 5 minutes, and I get the insights. But anybody on the team can actually do that. Maybe I have better questions to ask, maybe I have a better way to frame that insight. But what I used to take 5 hours a week or so to do is now done in like 5 minutes. So what am I doing now?
So, Prasanna, we talked about job identity. We talked about founder, like, in terms of mindset. We talked about our annoyance. But a lot of people that are going to listen to us are going to say, hey, man, like, you also came and told a problem only, right?
Yeah,
Everywhere else, we are listening to problem. So if we were to just shift gears a little bit and then say, hey, for each one of this, what's like one or two quick tips to think about slightly things differently? Maybe I can kick it off, right?
sure.
In terms of saying, look, you should try things out, right? Maybe you should, like, spend time out, like on a Saturday and Sunday, reserve that, and then say, try things like, maybe go and, like, test out a Claude code, or if you have not installed an OpenClaw, then you watch a tutorial and
Yeah,
install OpenClaw, and then like, band together with similar age folks, and then learn from each other, do Zoom sessions, things like this. What would you suggest for each of the things to deal with anxiety, deal with, like, changing mindset, and all the fun problems that we talked about?
sure. So I'll plug Meta Vipassana.
Okay.
So go for a 10 day,
I did not expect.
go for a 10-day Meta Vipassana retreat, right? That will help you build up your kindness to yourself, because in this kind of a shift, you need that kindness to yourself as well,
And
and
we
to
were
be able to
also
deal with
we
everything.
used to also talk about it during COVID time, right? I mean,
Yeah,
we are experiencing a very AI anxiety, very similar to a COVID
absolutely.
anxiety. So even then, that's what you used to say,
Yeah,
right? So you're saying that you need to think about taking care of yourself. I know the
correct.
world is changing too fast for our senses to make sense of it, right?
Yeah,
So slow down.
slow down, understand yourself first, um, be able to,
It's a tough one. No?
huh?
10 days is a tough one, no? I mean, I know you asked me to do, and I did. Like,
Yeah,
I enjoyed the experience, but
yeah.
yeah,
So that's a plug that I would do for that.
sure.
Uh, I think the second thing is definitely uh, get uh, cloud psychosis, right? So I think what I would say in addition to what you're saying is you can't just, like, dabble with it. You have to try to build something that's important or big, and
Put
allow
time.
yourself to surprise yourself, because I see too many people just dipping a finger and seeing the temperature, and I don't think that works. I think you got to jump in, and you got to try to build something yourself. And I would say this is especially true for non-technical founders, who may have been relying heavily on their technical co-founders. And many of the technical co-founders I've seen, are saying, hey, I'm not sure about this AI stuff, or I don't think it's ready for production, or yeah, it's nice, but we can't. Uh, it doesn't work for us, right? Oh, we are in a very, mm, you
Esoteric
know,
tech stack.
very or we our space requires a lot of uh, what do you call it?
Custom design and coding.
Yeah, and our our space is not probabilistic, right? Our space is very deterministic.
Deterministic. Ah, that's the right
Right.
word.
So our space is so deterministic that these LLM kind of things will not work for us to build stuff and things like that. Right? So I think especially non-technical founders have to use Cloud Code, have to build stuff. Maybe it's just a front end, maybe it's just a prototype, that kind of stuff. But they have to get into that and do that, and get the confidence that actually, because they have the product understanding and the vertical understanding, they can bring something, they can build something that really changes the business environment for them, that changes the startup environment for them. Because now they have to put the fear of God into the technical founders and say that, look, if I can build this stuff, then you have no business telling me that this doesn't work for us, or this doesn't work, or something like that.
Got it. So, um, Cloud Psychosis, Meta Vipassana. What else? What else is brewing in your mind?
Yeah, so I think I am just randomly building stuff these days. I think one of the things that I have ADHD, ASD, so lots of things keep coming up. And in the past, when those things come up, at best I would write a little bit about them and in a journal or whatever, and forget about them. But the ADHD hyper focus kind of a thing, basically, I can't get out of something easily, right? But now what happens is, when I get that idea, or whatever thought comes up, I don't care. I just go and build it, and I don't care if there's no audience. I don't care if nobody gives a shit. I don't care if it doesn't make sense to anybody else. But I'm just like getting it out, putting it into Cloud Code, building something, putting it on our website, and that, I think, um, for any of you folks with ADHD, you should get into that habit and not filter, and be kind to yourself. Whatever you're putting out is going to look like shit, but it doesn't matter. And whatever I'm putting out, it may feel like it's not important, but I should not self filter that. I should put it out, and then let the market decide, let the audience decide whether that is uh, useful or not, or whatever. It doesn't matter, right? Because the cost of building that is now a few million or few 100 million tokens. What's a few billion tokens between friends, right? So if you have ADHD, if you have a lot of ideas that are unfinished, get $100 or a $200 Cloud Code uh, subscription, and just like pump this stuff out, and who knows what will happen, right? It is again to the point of the stirring that you were talking about. You have to be out there, you have to be putting stuff out, you have to be stirring shit up, and then what comes, we don't know, right? Actually, one more thing that annoys me a lot is when people talk about taste. I think that is just such bullshit when people talk about taste as if it's a thing. It's not a thing, it's a process. Taste is a process, and somebody might think I have taste or I don't have taste, and that's completely, I feel, the wrong way of thinking about it. Taste is a process of discovery, taste is a process of creation. And so, folks who engage in that process of discovery, process of creation, process of you know tuning into things, tuning out of things, they create stuff, and then other people say that's good, and then the view is, oh, this person has taste. But I think that's the, like, and so people are trying to discover taste. No,
It doesn't work like
it
that.
doesn't work like that. You have to build, you have to engage, you have to tune in, and if you do that, then maybe something clicks, and in hindsight you can call it taste. Versus, people are putting the cart before the horse and saying, let me first get taste. No, you can collect thousand of the best websites in the world and explain why this one is good and that one is no. Bloody go build, because for what you are building, you don't know what is the right fit. So I think that's one thing that definitely annoys me as well.
Nice. All right. So we had a wide-ranging conversation. So anything you think we should have covered?
Yeah. So what's next?
What's next?
Yeah.
I
Come
mean,
on, you must have a prediction for the end of 2026.
you mean that way? What's next? You just caught me there. So I would say that look, I thought Cloud Code so maybe before that I will say, right. Just in terms of my framework of how I've been thinking about it. This is how what I had shared at AI Boomi as well. I think what is important in that I'm seeing in AI is you have to find what are weak signals that are going to lead to dam breaks, right? And find a way to sort of then hinge your, I mean, there is the saying, right? Hitch your ride to a rising star, right? So like that, find out like what are those dam breaks that are happening, and that comes from steering yourself, that comes from people who are steering, and then it could be happening at a reinforcement learning level, which is what is happening right now. Or it could be that OpenClaw is the next Cloud Code. So for me, one prediction is the next dam break that I see is NemoClaw for sure, right? In the sense that OpenClaw already is proven because it is the highest number of stars on GitHub. And then if you look at the developers that are using it, they are just, or you go to the Discord, it is crazy, right? The number of things, and especially in China, right? So OpenClaw for sure, like on the BDC world, but then through NVIDIA's adoption, it is we're gonna see the same thing in this year itself from a NemoClaw perspective. Now, I feel that there will be at least $1 billion acquisition that will happen, which is going to be around the NemoClaw or OpenClaw ecosystem, just the way Bun happened or like the way Metronome happened by the end of this year. I mean, some big agentic related components or company will actually go through like $1 billion. Other thing, like as part of the framework, is you need to look at dam breaks. You need to build digital cocaine products like Cloud Code. And I think the design for digital cocaine is different from the design for any other digital product that we have done so far. So that is going to be very interesting to see how that shapes up. There are like many products like that already. Like for instance, character AI was supposed to be one such,
Yeah.
where teenagers were addicted to it, right? Or there were like role playing AI boyfriends, girlfriends, and like basically Cloud Code is a catnip for a programmer, right? So
Yeah.
we will see a lot more addictive products that will come out, because people have now seen that when you build something like a Cloud Code, you can get to $1 billion, and that becomes the new expectation from investors. But there again, like who wins, who doesn't win, boils down to how people are able to become that very central part inside the value chain, right? Which perhaps requires them to do the Wadley map analysis. But short answer to your question is I think there'll be like at least $1 billion acquisition around the open ecosystem, at least one.
Awesome. So do you want to plug anything?
Plug. No, just read me on mtrajan.substack.com.
Okay. So, folks who are listening in, if you are building a business, you're a founder, and you're not sure what's next, uh, ping us at Upekkha. We have an advisory program where we're helping folks change from being in a bus that's going nowhere to being in a next generation quadcopter that can fly you anywhere in the world in 2 hours. So that's the software to AI transition that we've already helped many founders with, and we're going to do that for a few people in 2026. Me and a couple of friends are building some collaboration tools on top of Cloud Code. So if you are living in Cloud Code or Codex all day and you feel like you're missing something, ping me and I'll get you into a beta and we can play around with some cool stuff. We're also going to be hosting a bunch of parties over the next weeks and months. So follow us at Upekkha B on Twitter, and we'll be posting there. You can sign up and join us at our parties around NemoClaw or OpenClaw or whatever the hell comes up in AI that's new. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, folks.
We had a lot of fun chatting, and
Chatting.
we'll figure out how to do this more often. If you have any specific questions, shoot them to us on the video, and we'll be happy to get back to you on that.